If you came across a physician, a scientist, a doctor, who excelled in his field, who appeared to be much more learned and skilled than his peers and contemporaries. This physician also happens to be at the top of his field. He is a distinguished member of his scientific community, and for good measure, he also happens to win the Nobel Prize in physiology. It's only natural then that you would try to investigate this individual's background. You look him up, you Google his name, you try to find out what the secret to his success is. So the first thing you would naturally try to investigate is his CV. You'd like to know where he studied. You'd like to know which university he graduated from. And sure enough, you find out that the university where this individual graduated from was University XYZ. A few years later, another distinguished physician also comes to the scene. He or she excels in their field, and sure enough, ends up becoming a Nobel laureate. Naturally, the same inquisitive nature that you have makes you want to investigate this person's background. When you do look up this individual, you're surprised to find that he is a graduate of the same university from which the previous physician also graduated. A few years later, you come across another individual. This time, a scientist who happens to cure cancer or develop the first vaccine that prevents a plague from re-emerging and plaguing the entire world. You investigate that person's background, and it turns out that he is indeed a graduate of the same university. Now at this point, you have come to the realization that there is something special about this educational institution. For this institution to produce this many distinguished scientists and individuals who excel in their field and in their discipline means that this is a truly special institution. If you find a fourth person that also matches the same CV and who's a graduate of the same university, at this stage you have no doubt that this university is one that everyone should aspire to go to. This institution is one that has the potential, the systems, the curriculum, the faculty in place that creates a formula. And this formula is then what allows these individuals to flourish and to become so successful in their fields. Now, when you look at the four brothers who were the children of Ummul Baneen, you look at Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas ibn Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salawatullah wal malaika wal nasi ajma'een. Taking a quick look at his CV, what he was able to accomplish, what he was able to do, the legend that was Abbas. Such a legend, in fact, that Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam says, إن لعمنا العباس درجة يوم القيامة يغبطه عليها جميع الشهداء. I've always said that when somebody's wealthy, they're not truly wealthy unless they're compared with the richest people in the world, right? You're not smart until you're compared against the gauge of the smartest people in the world. That's why the Nobel Prize is so prestigious, because only those who are extremely qualified are registered as candidates for the prize. And so you're only truly religious when you're compared against who? People like me? People whose religiosity is questionable at best? No. That's why it's always easy to get off the hook by comparing myself to someone who's lower than me. It's the easiest thing to do. When I compare my own conviction, my own practice of my religious rituals, when I compare them to somebody who doesn't care about religion, all of a sudden I look good. I start to shine. But that's not how it works. The true measure of someone's religiosity is when they're measured against those who are truly religious. When they're measured against someone who can act as a standard, as a gauge, as a barometer of religiosity. Not any Tom, Dick, and Harry. And so, when the martyrs are envious of the station, of the status, of the position of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, alayhi salatu wassalam, that's when you realize that you are up against a mountain of faith, a mountain of conviction, a mountain of loyalty, and so on and so forth. يغبطه بها جميع الشهداء. The hadith says, فوق كل ذي بر بر حتى يقتل المرء في سبيل الله. The highest accolade one can receive is to be a martyr in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The most distinguished mark and label is to be a shaheed. And yet all of the shuhada, in other words, the most distinguished human beings, are the ones that envy the position of Abbas on the Day of Judgment. And at this point, had Abbas been just one child of this incredibly distinguished woman, you might be able to say that this is an anomaly, that this is an exception. But when it's not just one of her sons, not just two, not just three, but all four of her children who receive the same honor, the same accolade, the same position as being among the most loyal companions of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. At this point, this is no longer just an anomaly. At this point, there is something special about Ummul Baneen. And that's why most people who achieve great positions, whether it be in worldly affairs or in spiritual things, most individuals who are successful, their mothers are not credited for their success. You hardly ever say, wow, what a great mother this person might have had for him to be able to achieve such and such position. That never happens. Maybe it should happen more often, but it doesn't. Except in the case of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas and his three brothers. Their grandeur is attributed to their mother, Ummul Baneen, Fatima bint Huzam al-Kilabiyya, salamullahi alayhi. Obviously, Amirul Mu'mineen, alayhi salatu wassalam, contributed a great deal. Half the gene pool was provided by Ali ibn Abi Talib, but that's not enough. It's not enough. It requires the like of Ummul Baneen. It requires someone who dedicated every iota, every modicum, every atom of her existence to the Imam of her time, to her master, to Ali ibn Abi Talib and the children of Ali. It required this person to carefully craft the journey of her children from the moment of birth until the moment she bid them all farewell as they were headed towards the plains of Karbala. Every single waking moment had to be nudged in the right direction so that they were able to achieve such grandeur that Abbas is offered a piece of paper that's not a passport. It's not a citizenship certificate. It's not a bank statement. It's a certificate that says you get to live if you choose to take it. Should you choose to stand on the sidelines and not get involved in this war, we will let you live, otherwise you die. People commit atrocious acts for a little bit more zeros in their bank account. God knows what people do in exchange for a passport, a certificate, citizenship, this, that, and the other. God knows what people do in order to get their university degree. The number of red lines they're willing to cross, the number of sins they're happy to commit. Oh, because it's important, I gotta study, I have to do this, I don't have a choice. And here Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas is told by Shamr ibn al-Jawshan, alayhi la'a'inullah, that should you choose to simply walk away, you don't even have to join us, walk away, you get to live or you die. How does he respond? Notice how there's not a single piece of hesitation in his response. There's not a single trace of reluctance. What does he say? لَعَنَكَ اللَّهُ وَلَعَنَ أَمَانَكَ أَتُؤَمِّنُنِي وَابْنُ بِنْتِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ لَا أَمَانَ لَهَا. See that statement right there. There aren't too many scenes from the life of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas on the day of Ashura that we know of, really, because the star of Imam al-Hussein outshined all of the bright planets that surrounded it. But the few scenes that we do have, the few instances of his words or his actions that have survived the book burnings and the censorships and have reached us, each one of them is sufficient to explain why he is the envy of the martyrs on the day of judgment. He says, you're offering me impunity and safety, while the son of the daughter of Rasulullah has no safety, has no impunity, has no protection. May God curse you and your impunity. He could have simply said, no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. But for him to say, la'anak Allah, you know that behind this simple statement is a mountain of faith, a lifetime of preparation and devotion and loyalty to the truth manifested in the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu